Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that President Trump's been fighting pretty hard right now, and he's trying to maintain Congress and win the midterms. And many of you probably believe that he's doing a really good job. And I would have to agree. I think the administration and President Trump are doing quite excellent. But what I don't think many of you know is what the numbers say. And as someone who's been a conscious advocate for the president, who's known him for about 10 years now, has been fighting by his side, I understand the echo chamber phenomena. I understand what it's like to be doing really, really good. And because of that, we become complacent. So what I've done is I looked at the results of our primaries for this cycle, and I think the results are going to be pretty surprising to you. See, I've taken the comparable 20 state primaries that we've had through August, okay, it's a snapshot. What I've found is that Democrats are outperforming Republicans by nearly 15%. Right. Democrats supplied 57% of the primary votes and Republicans 43. Now, tomorrow we have Wisconsin and Minnesota who are going to give us the next live test of who's actually motivated enough to show up to vote. And while this doesn't tell us who's going to win in November, it does tell us one thing. Confidence doesn't win elections. It doesn't drive turnout either. In fact, I think it may actually do the exact opposite. Now, this is a warning about participation, not a prediction of the general election. Primary voters, as we know, are the most engaged. They're not the whole November electorate. Okay, but if one party is showing more urgency in these primaries, while the other party is watching videos on YouTube telling itself that the election is already over and won because Trump is kicking everybody's ass every minute of the day, then we have a problem worth taking seriously.
And this is what nobody understands. Nobody understands it. The president in power, Republican or Democrat, as I call it, the president in power always loses. It's the craziest thing. 2 times.
96
and they were a little unusual time.
Yes, they were.
There's a psychology down deep that nobody can explain.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Because President Trump knows exactly what's going on. Okay. Now, the point of this video and his statement is not that history makes defeat automatic for us. The point is that the party in power has to overcome a pattern, a history that's real. Now, Trump says nobody understands it, but he's not. If you listen to it more, he actually shows that he understands it. He knows the pattern exists, and he tells us exactly what the obstacle is. And it is complacency. You don't have to go too far to see this, okay? North Carolina, they gave us a concrete state level example. The 2026 primary turnout was 1.5 million voters. Democratic turnout was 24%, nearly 25. Republican was 19.8, nearly 20. And the Democrats cast 115,000 more ballots than we did. And that doesn't mean North Carolina's already decided. It just means the Democratic side produced more engaged primary voters in a state that Republicans need to take seriously. We have a huge race there in the Senate. Okay. A campaign can be favored on paper, have a lot of money, but still lose if we don't show up to do the basic work and exercise our constitutional right to vote. That is a fact. Now, this is where the state charts matter. Okay. I have a workbook that I created and it separates the party count. Okay. The party share of the electorate. And the change from 2018 to 2022 is pretty significant. Okay. Pretty significant. Right here. Okay. These are not interchangeable numbers. A party can win the raw count and still represent a smaller share of the total electorate. It depends on the state and the denominator. All right. And Alabama. Okay, that's an example of why we have to read the chart carefully. The 2026 Alabama party counts in the workbook that I've created are estimates that are derived from a rounded statewide total that have been published by the Alabama Secretary of State. Okay. They're useful for showing the direction. They're not certified, but they're useful. And this distinction is important because we have to be honest here. Okay. Not 100% a fact, but I can tell you this is where the curve is. And this Alabama change, okay, it makes the point. In 2018, 299,000 Democratic voters represented 8.5% of the electorate. About 597,000 Republican voters, 17% of the electorate. In 2022, Democrats went up to 5.4. Or excuse me, Democrats went down to 5.4. Republicans, they went down a little bit, 18.9. 2026, Democrats have gone up, nearly doubled. Okay. And Republicans have dropped by 5. We only have a 4% lead, effectively, 3.5 actually, on Democrats in Alabama. Yeah, this isn't a Democratic win in Alabama. Okay, it's a change in the participation balance. We still have more primary voters there, but the Republican share is lower, way lower than 22 and 2016. Democrats has gone up. And that's exactly why you have to look at these percentages, okay, and target and forecast the potential change. Now, if you look at the state comparison, okay, that tells us not to turn one national percentage into a slogan. Okay, Alabama, the Republican primary still produces the larger count in 2026. But both parties are being measured against their own 2018 and 2022 participation. In Georgia, okay, the Democratic primary turnout was 160,000 ballots, or excuse me, 160,000 ballots higher than Republican turnout. Okay, the first Democratic turnout lead there since 1998. In North Carolina, the official figures show the same directional pressure with a large Democratic turnout rate. That's the different kind of evidence that we need to be thinking of. Alabama is a carefully labeled estimate. Georgia is a statewide comparison that shows a huge impact. North Carolina is an official turnout total. And the answer here is not to show or not to throw them into these individual buckets and say they're, the answer. Okay. But it's to use each state's number for what they actually measure. And they measure Democrats motivated. Okay, we have Georgia too. We have North Carolina, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Texas, and Utah all alongside 2018 to 2026. Some states have already certified their totals. Okay, some use the top ticket as the prior proxy. Some have a denominator limitation or a party share estimate. Okay, when the chart says percentage on what I have, I don't know, I might attach it. Okay, we have to ask ourselves which electorate, right? Registered voters, active registered voters, or a source-defined voter universe. Now, that may sound technical to you, but it's the difference between analytics and propaganda. Because my goal here is not to make every state look the same. It's to see where the party mix is changing, where turnout is rising, and where the data is either complete or incomplete. Because we have to be able to be predictive here. Okay? But again, the broader pattern, regardless, is visible. Across the national snapshot, Democrats and their primary voters are currently supplying a larger share of turnout in North Carolina, okay, everywhere. Now, again, the next primaries are tomorrow and they may tell us something different, but I don't think we're going to be able to avoid this pattern. Now, I want you to listen to a point that the president makes.
Even if you did a great job as president, they seem to lose. That's the only thing that I have going.
Even if you do a great job as president, you seem to lose. Okay? That's the line here that's important. Okay, midterms are not a side issue that can be handled after a victory speech. They're the obstacle inside the victory plan. And Trump is absolutely right. And I would argue that when you do well, right, and you're performing great, you're producing numbers, that your voter base becomes confident enough to stay home or get on YouTube and maintain their complacence in their echo chamber. Now, Trump can be right that the Republicans have a stronger message. Okay, he can be right that the Democrat candidates are vulnerable. He can be right that the party in power always loses ground. None of those things, though, will put a ballot into a voting box. The historical data that we have gives us the boundary. The party in power often loses seats in the midterm, but often is not always. A lot of things come to play. Okay, the issues of the moment matter. The economy matters. The general election electorate is, different from the primary electorate, but all of these factors come into play. So the responsible conclusion is not that, hey, the Democrats are so radical, they don't have a platform and they're split, they're going to lose, or that, the Democrat primary turnout is showing a high wave and that means we're going to lose. The responsible conclusion is that Republicans cannot dismiss the warning that we see now because primary turnout is showing to not be in our favor. Okay, the warning has to be something that becomes useful. Who would we be if we didn't? Okay.
And even good presidents, they tend to lose the midterm. So I don't know what that is. Other than that, I'd say we should win easily. Now, I think they're hurting themselves because we don't want communists in our country. You got a lot of bad candidates on the.
Now, he says that, and he knows what he's saying. Okay. And that's the tension. Trump knows that we should win easily. We should. The numbers say, the question isn't whether Republicans can make the case. The question is whether we will actually show up to turn that case and that confidence into participation. And this is where the online political ecosystem hurts us. I also want to point out the fact that a lot of the viewership on YouTube is dependent upon, the channels that they watch. And those channels are more than not lying. They're repetitiously building narratives as if we're dominating everything every day. We may be dominating principally and ethically, but if we don't turn out to vote, the domination's gone. We'll sit here and watch YouTube videos and pretend as if we have it in the bag, and Democrats will get motivated, show up with their blue hair like they don't care, and cast those votes, and they'll win. And we all know no candidate in the history of the United States has motivated Democrats to vote more than President Trump. Now, look, folks, if you want the numbers behind these narratives, subscribe, okay? Because I'm not going to sell you any BS. We're going to keep following turnout state by state. We're going to win these midterms, by God, right? Now, look, if you look at the August 11th results, okay, that are coming, we have to watch the whole turnout. We have to watch the party mix. We have to watch where the states report. We have to watch whether Republican participation closes the gap in these two states or whether Democrats keep supplying, the more motivated primary electorate. We cannot let headlines about one candidate replace the turnout table. The useful question here is not who had the loudest rally. It's not how many ballots it's how many ballots that each party produced ultimately. Okay, what share of the electorate that those ballots represent and whether that share is moving into the Republican favor. These numbers are going to tell us everything we need to know about November. They're going to set the tone. They're going to tell us whether our confidence is attached to voters or just attached to this online echo chamber. And that's the real lesson from Trump's comments. He says we should win easily, but he also says the midterms are the main obstacle. We have history to overcome, and we have complacency getting in our way. And all of those statements are true. This party is in power, and it can have the strongest argument in the world, but still lose if we stay home. So don't watch these elections, these primaries, like it's already over. Get off your butt, get registered. When you see these videos online of these people that are talking out of their asses, downvote them, report them. Okay? Like I said in the video before, Johnny in Southwest Kentucky is not going to get out to vote if he thinks the election's already won. We need Johnny scared off his ass. That's what we need. We need participation. And right now we're on the downward trend. We can win. We own the message. We own the energy. We have the greatest president in the history of our nation. We would be doing ourselves and him a disservice if we let this opportunity slip through our fingers. So keep fighting the good fight, folks. And I'm glad you're here. And if I disappointed you with the truth, I apologize. But look, sometimes it hurts. The point of this is we are in control. This truth only stays if we allow it. So see you next time.